Okay, it's almost 2 o'clock. This is the first time I do a live. I just clicked ahead of time just to make sure this was going to work. And it seems to work because I had an experience before where it just didn't go according to plan. So we will wait a little bit. Pum, 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 pum. Waiting for 2 o'clock or even past a few minutes. The little Tchaikovsky before we talk about weight loss. It's fantastic. I didn't cue the music in, but it sounds like it's going to be just about right. All right. We'll wait a couple of minutes for latecomers. All right. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. It's right on time. Thank you very much. There's quite a few people here. And so my name is Pierre Fontaine. I've been a professional homeopath for about 25 years. I've been interested in weight loss for quite a number of years. And what I have done really over the last few years is to cull some information from different areas. And I came to understand that that doing so gave results. It gave results for me in the first place. And then I toyed around with sports and gave advice as I was learning various different aspects of what I'm going to talk. I gave advice to quite a number of people. And it turns out that the advice worked. And I thought, this is interesting, but it was never complete. I think at this moment, it is clearly the most complete information I have in order to be successful in losing weight quite on a regular basis. So the general view, what is always done out there, the general view is eat less and exercise more. All right, well, that's great, but it doesn't take into consideration who we are. It is just a linear thinking. We eat less calories, exercise more, burn more calories than we eat, than we consume, and automatically we lose weight. But why is it that some people cannot do that? Okay, why is it that the majority of people really cannot do that? That was the question, right? So, and I think kind of solved the question quite a bit. It's going to take quite a while. This is not the only video, the only live video. I'm going to do this every week. So, eat less, exercise more. Great. Yes, it works. If you stop eating, you will lose weight. Not good for you. Exercise more. We have TV shows now that show this, and it is very, very difficult and not necessarily completely successful because people bounce back. So here's the first thing to know. I asked a question a few weeks ago. When we lose weight, where does it go? That's the first question to answer. So when we lose weight, it goes out in the atmosphere. 85% of the weight we lose is CO2. We don't know it because we breathe it out, but that's what it is. Fat is agglutinated CO2. 15% of the weight we lose, only 15%, is water. So I think that is important to know because once we had our ducks in a row, we have a better understanding in our mind. So it satisfies a certain rationale that we always seek. We always want to know why. So that's what weight is. That's what fat weight is. It is CO2 and H2O. CO2 85%, H2O 15. I've done a video on that before. That's what it is. The CO2 we don't see because it is not frozen. But if we breathe it out and if we could freeze that, then we would see mass. That's what it is. So that's what our fat. Okay. One very interesting aspect that we also need to know is that there are 10 trillion cells in the human body. 10 trillion human cells in the human body. There are 100 trillion bacterial cells in the body. I believe that is important to know, because 90 and supposedly as much as 99% of metabolic function is bacterial. And so when we eat, we are feeding ourselves and we are feeding a lot of bacteria. When we diet, what we do is starve bacteria. But bacteria wants to survive just as much as we do. So the reason why people yo-yo around diets is because the bacteria adapts to the different food we give it. So yes, diet works for a short amount of time, generally, about 3 to 6 months. That's about the time it takes for the bacteria in the body to change itself to use different food. Okay? That is very interesting. It's very interesting because, for example, when people live in New York, a lot of people come to New York from other countries, and all of a sudden they gain weight. People think it's American food. It may be, but it is not that. It is really that the bacteria has changed. The food is different, and the bacteria change causes weight gain. So I believe that it is not a good idea to actually diet. Okay, that's the first point, and we'll talk about this later on in phase 1. So what do we look for? What I am looking for in everybody who is joining this group is for long-term results. It's not going to be lose 10 pounds in 10 days. That is not, because that fails. Why do something that consistently fails? Most of diets do that. So there's no point in doing it the same thing over again, right? Most diets have not explained the 2 points I've already made, okay? Those are very important because it gives understanding. So nobody's done that so far. If you're averse, I wanted to say this, if you're averse to new information or radically different information, then there is no point here. Huh? I am assuming most people who are joining the group here have tried many different things, many different ways, and have not succeeded. So we're not going to talk about 30 days, 30 pounds, 10 days, 10 pounds. We're not going to talk about hormones. We're not going to talk about carbohydrates. We're not going to talk about diet. We're not going to talk about any products that I have to sell in order for you to lose weight. That is not sustainable. What is sustainable is what we do, okay? And it should, when we want to lose weight, or at least when we want to be healthy, it should include exercise, okay? But that will be phase 2. So the linear approach theoretically works, but in practice, it does not work. That is what the evidence tells us, all right? Exercise, eat less, lose weight. Strictly a linear approach does not work. We need to know, however, if we want to lose weight, what food is. Food is many different things. Food is, first of all, a nutrition, right? It nourishes our body. It nourishes the 10 trillion cells that are ours. It also nourishes the 100 trillion bacterial cells that are also ours. Okay? That is the first thing we do when we are born, and it is the last thing we are going to do before we die. So in my view, food is also a habit. It is also, in some people, a drug, because anything that we do 3 times a day, sometimes at least every single day of our lives, can only be a habit. Okay? So, it is also, food has also an emotional aspect to it. We talk about comfort food a lot. Comfort food brings us a feeling. It is emotional. And that's why I think diets, if one goes on a high protein diet, it does not work. Diets don't work a long time because they don't take the emotion into consideration. We don't want to count beans. We don't want to count calories so much. That is work. And that is not the way we should lose weight. So once we understand that food is nutritious, yes it is a habit and a drug, and we'll talk about this further. It has an emotional aspect to it. That's why we cannot change our diet so much. We have to go back to what we were eating when we were younger, okay? What gives us comfort a lot. When we say, oh, I am eating very good food now. Well, that's great. I want the food to relate as much to what you feel you should eat. Of course, that said, if you grew up on McDonald's, it cannot be. We need to be rational about this. Food should be emotionally nutritious. It should be a food that brings you back in contact with yourself. And if it was McDonald's, we should get away from that, okay? Food is also a social vehicle. We're going to have Thanksgiving in a few days. It is a social vehicle. So in that sense, it is also emotional. We break bread when we meet someone in many ways, when people come and join us. It has a social aspect that cannot be discarded. So if you become a vegetarian, as I was many years ago, then you are completely disregarded. You're the real guy. That does not work. It does not satisfy the emotional aspects. Okay, it's very difficult for vegetarians. So if you were not brought up vegetarian or in a vegetarian society, it becomes very difficult to radically change the diet unless you are strongly emotionally pulled to it. Okay, unless you are strongly emotionally pulled to it, then you should do it because it is in resonance with you. One other aspect, a last aspect, is in terms of survival. We also have to understand that we are animals. We are human beings, but we are animals as well. And by nature, I believe animals want to be bigger. When you have small animals very often want to get themselves bigger. So the fur goes up or the feathers go up. I believe we use food to be bigger. If we look around society, it is very unusual for people in the leadership position to be small. They are generally big people. And very often, we all aspire to something like that. We want to be taken into consideration. And size matters in that sense. However, we can develop a different way to go about this, because when we are in resonance with the body, then size no longer matters. These 6 different aspects of food are half conscious, okay? So all this is very interesting in my view. That is why I do it. But in addition to, once we know this, what fat is, what the body is, 10 trillion cells human cells, 100 trillion cells bacterial, once we know the different categories of food, which will help us to isolate the areas we use food for. Once we know food, we have to know about one concept. One concept of food, one concept of ourselves that is very black and white is anabolic and catabolic. When we eat food, it's an anabolic process. We want to be bigger, we want more nutrition, okay? We want more emotions. We want to fill a void. A lot of these things are talked about, okay? So the process is generally that of getting bigger, whether it is emotion, whether it is physical, whether it is nutritious, okay? The aspect we are not used to, and the aspect that pains us, is the catabolic aspect. I'll give you an example. I figured this out about 5 years ago. I was in France, and I went on a bike ride. I went on a bike ride. I live in the French Alps. It's difficult to bike around there. And I went with a friend of mine who has, let's say, a few pounds to lose, okay? And we go on this long bike ride. We didn't eat anything. And when we got home, he had to have 2 squares of sugar. And I realized right then and there, I said, my God, we really have hundreds of thousands of different calories, hundreds of thousands of calories stored in our body. What is the use of rushing to get a piece of sugar that has just a handful of calories, maybe 60 calories? It did not make sense to me. It does not make sense. It's hundreds of thousands of calories versus 60 calories in a sugar cube. And I realized that is the habit. It's the habit. It is the non-desire also to be smaller, to shrink down, because this reverse metabolism, the catabolic system, the catabolic process is painful. I realize at that moment that it is physically and emotionally painful. So I want to teach here when to recognize the catabolic process versus what we need and what we feel we should have as well because of the habit, okay? You see, it's going to start to tie really well. So the catabolic process triggers the getting smaller. It's an emotional aspect to it. We are getting smaller. We are not used to it physically. Physically, we are not used to shedding, okay? And also, mostly because food is readily available. We have food just a few feet away from us. I am sure that everyone in the group right now has food just a few feet away. So we need to let this catabolic process happen. We need to get our mind over what happens. We know that we have hundreds of thousands of calories ready to burn into CO2 and water, okay? It's there. We have it. It's on us. It's our reserves. So the catabolic process triggers this animal instinct of being bigger. It also triggers the emotional aspect. And that's when you get angry. When you rush for food, when you say, I am hungry, I have to eat, that is the habit. It is the habit. That's why most people eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and some snack in between. But the breakfast, lunch, and dinner are habits. I can assure you of that. The body is used to it. Okay? It's a habit. And when you go on exercise, that's why I disregard exercise in phase 1 of the system. We need to recognize the anabolic catabolic process. When it is catabolic, you get upset. But getting upset, just like a drug addict needs to have a fix, it is the same thing. Or an alcoholic needs to have a fix, or a fix of something. Nowadays, it seems like kids with their iPhones, they have to have it. It almost feels addictive in that sense. We have to have it. When you have to have food, that's the catabolic process. Okay? Triggering. It is not what I call the biological clock. We have a food biological clock. And once we understand catabolic and anabolic, once we get some control over that, in order to get control over it, we need to know about it. Once we begin to know catabolic, once we begin to observe this catabolic and anabolic process, then we fall onto an area I call the biological clock. And the biological clock is completely different from the habit. The biological clock for me, for example, is I eat something or I take some calories at 10:30 in the morning. That's my biological clock. And then I do not eat anything until 5 or 6. I try to stretch it to 6 or 7, 8 o'clock. Okay? When I mean stretching, it is not painful. Okay? But very often, but because we have food close by, it becomes more painful. Say, oh, well, now I need to eat. No, my biological clock is 10:30 and about 7 o'clock at night. 8 o'clock maybe. If I eat at those times, I shed weight automatically. So once you begin to figure out your biological clock, I believe one of the meals will have to go. It may be that you don't eat anything in the morning, and there's a lot of people. You have to put all this information that we have learned, that we have been told, not taught, told that you must eat in the morning. It's the most important meal in the day. Who in the world? Who in the world? There is a biological clock. Maybe you don't eat anything until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It could be 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It could be at any time. But when you figure out your biological clock, you eat out of a need that you know you are losing, okay? You are shedding. It is the catabolic process. It helps to know that. So understand that catabolic, when it is a habit, is painful. When it is to lose weight, it is not painful. And so therefore you can lose it. It is not a problem. And you will realize, trust me, you will see, you will feel it. You're going to say, I'm losing calories now. I am literally losing weight, and it is not painful. I've talked to some people who have done this before. I talked to one person even recently who's done this her entire life, and it is literally scary even. She has some thoughts on that. Once you know your biological clock, you really can shed weight and even scare yourself. That is when I found this concept, this reality. I scared myself and I began to eat. I actually began to exercise a whole lot more to regulate myself. And so that's phase one. That is phase one. If anybody would like to send questions, that in a nutshell, we will talk then in much details, but I wanted to give an overview today, right before Thanksgiving. Can you imagine this timing? This is crazy timing. But it was necessary. I really wanted to do it. I feel in a very productive mood, in a very a radical mood. An invention needed to come out. And after years, I really wanted to say it all. Yeah, I'm scared too. Let's recap, okay? Weight, fat is CO2 and H2O. 85% CO2, 15% H2O. So we can lose that. Oh, I have another thing to say about food. Oh, I gotta make a note. Food. What is food? Food, what is? Okay. So then metabolic process. Forget hormones, forget testosterone, guys who show up with like the, you know, you've seen these guys. This guy's all over the place with some gorgeous woman next to him. So, well, you see, look at my muscles. But trust me, I got a 31 waist. I have no problem. I do not pump stuff. Nobody needs to do that unless it becomes your exercise of choice. Okay, it needs, everything we're going to do is going to be in synergy with yourself. Okay, so 10 trillion human cells, 100 trillion bacterial cells in the body, and 90, possibly 99% of all metabolic processes is bacterial in your body. When you take supplements, you are really feeding the bacteria. When you eat, you are feeding the bacteria. What we are looking for with this system is not a quick fix, but a long-term, it's a long-term project. What do I mean by long-term, by the way? I mean about 6 months, okay? 6 months where you're gonna feel better. We are not gonna push you into doing something. You are gonna feel better. You are gonna feel more in synergy, because we have learned stuff together. We have learned what food is. It is not only nutritious, a lot of food isn't, but it is also a habit, a drug, that when the catabolic process happens and we are not aware of it, we get angry. We want to have this food because we don't want to get smaller, because the catabolic process is physically painful, emotionally painful as well. We've learned that food is also a matter of getting bigger because we are animals as well. And food really relates in many ways to our lower self. So we ought to be conscious of it. We learned that strictly having a linear approach has not worked. This is not intermittent fasting. I don't think we should do anything like this. Intermittent fasting. These are plans. And I don't think plans are useful in the long term. We should take stock, each one of us should take stock of where we are at this moment in terms of our weight. We should take stock. For example, if someone is from Poland, there's a certain food. You're eating a certain food. If you are from India, you're eating a certain food. We don't want to fast. Fasting is fine to do, let's say, in the fall now for a few days. It is fine to do in the spring. There's usually, you know, a correlation with the change of season. But we're not going to do plans. We want to be living, understanding what food, what weight is, what the body is, what food is, and the processes that help us lose and gain weight. It's a lose and gain weight. Losing weight, catabolic; gaining weight, anabolic. Anabolic is rarely painful. Catabolic is painful, emotionally and physically. It is the drug. We get angry. We want to eat. I have to eat right now. We've all done that. Okay, that is when food is a habit. So recognize, I'm getting angry because I haven't eaten, and I'm just get away from me. I have not had any food. You have plenty of calories to burn. That is the habit talking. Okay. And so then we figure out, once we know, once we have gotten, once we are conscious of this, then we can figure out the end of phase one, which is the biological clock, our own food biological clock that does not require a diet. It does not require limiting calories per se, although we should be cautious. But at first, it just requires understanding when we should eat versus the habit of eating. Okay? So if you look at all that, and it will make, that will begin to make a difference. Okay? Questions. So that is phase one. Phase two will have to do with exercise. Phase two, we will talk next time, and that is exercise. For some people who have not exercised their entire lives, and for these programs to begin, well, you should exercise. Man, this is ridiculous. You know, if you figure out your biological clock, there's a good chance you can lose quite a substantial amount of weight. Some people will never exercise, but we should exercise, surely, for most people, because it does, we're going to live long lives, and certainly it is good for the mind, it is good cardiovascular system, it is good all around. So we certainly should exercise, but what kind of exercise? It might be, we'll talk about many different kinds of exercises, and that will include knitting as well. I have all that list. Now, as a homeopath, where does homeopathy fit in this? Homeopathy fits in many different areas. It fits clearly in terms of the there may be some physical ailment and attached to emotional. So what a homeopathic remedy can do is make this entire process much easier. To be on a good remedy that can unlock the habit process, that can unlock the animal process, that can unlock the nurturing or the social aspect. The remedy can do that. It can unlock that, you see? If you eat a lot of calories on the phone while you're on the phone, because you have to be on the phone 2 hours after at a certain time, say 9 o'clock, you call up a friend and you chit chat until 2 o'clock and you're eating at the same time. If you cannot get away from that, that could be a habit. But it is also an emotional connection. The homeopathic remedy can get rid of that. You recognize the biological clock because you don't get angry. It is really, then, this is a great question. The process is completely different when you get to the biological clock. You eat for an entirely different purpose. You eat for an entirely different purpose. You really eat for nourishment. Not only physical, you eat for nourishment. It really becomes a heart. It's nourishing the heart. It's nourishing yourself, almost with a capital S. It's a very, very different feeling. That's when you nurture the biological clock. You are more in tune. You're not angry at all when you eat that way. When you eat on the biological clock, you're not angry. Okay? Not angry. You get hungry in a different way. It is no longer a need, really. It is no longer a need. It is nourishment. It's a sort of nourishment. Because what is food, by the way? What is food? Food is not just calories. It is not just vitamins and minerals. Food is primarily energy. Food is primarily solar energy. A plant uses CO2. Let's go back. Oh, this ties it well. A plant takes the CO2 and sunlight. Plant takes CO2 and sunlight, and with the process with this wonderful with chlorophyll, it makes energy. It makes eatable energy. So a plant is really a framework for solar energy, just like we are a framework for energy. We can even take that energy a little further than the sun, yes? There is a spiritual aspect to it. That's why junk food, that's why prepared food really don't nourish anybody. That's why I mentioned we should leave that aside. We are in understanding, all of us here, that food should be pretty much fresh, right? For the most part. That's really what food is. It is solar energy. It is captured solar energy into a solid form. That's what we are as well. But a plant is CO2 and solar energy. The two with chlorophyll and photosynthesis is the process by which it all glues together, and then we can eat it as matter. But it is solar energy. Solar energy, that is what we are. That's what we eat. Okay? The biological clock is very difficult. Once you know, it is not so easy, it is not so difficult to get it to tick. It will tick. It's just gonna take some trial and error, okay? If errors it is. It is just shedding a habit. You will shed the habit. As you shed the habit, the pounds will shed as well. To make it easier, we can, again, the homeopathic remedy. But you, most of you know me now, and you probably know that I believe everybody should take a homeopathic remedy, right? At some point, for some time, clear something up, and then hunky dory. But yes, the biological clock will tick automatically once once the oversimplistic ideas that the diet industry keeps on spewing out, once we get rid of this, and we have much more solid information that is scientific as well as taking the human aspect, the experience, the life into consideration, then it becomes much easier. That is why I'm doing these videos. I'm glad it's making sense to add. It has done wonders. This has done wonders. I haven't seen hundreds and hundreds of people as I have with ASD, but a good chunk, to be able to say that will work once you know. You will see, you will experience this. It will come little by little. When you stop rushing, when you don't have to rush to eat, to get some food in you, because remember, you have hundreds of thousands of calories available. So you can definitely bake it the next half hour. I hope this has this begins to a process for us all that will shed many pounds. Ultimately, make us all much healthier, happier, and therefore we're able to spread the cheer. Thank you very much. Let's see now. Yeah, nothing. You have it all. The food you eat, stick with it. No need for a diet. No need for a product. No need for anything. You have everything, including the calories, huh? Including the calories. It's so depressing. Oh my God, when you hear you have hundreds of thousands of calories on you. Oof. Oh, the first time I heard that, I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? How is it going to work? This is not going to be possible. Yes, it's almost hopeless. And then you have all these ideas that it's age, with age you gain weight. Really? What? Why my grandmother was so skinny? Huh? So and most people in my family did quite well with that. So what was it that I could do differently? Slow food, again, metabolism is a bacterial matter. So some people eat slowly. Some people eat some people eat some food in the plate and then will stop for 10 minutes. This is the individual aspect that we have to respect. We don't have to wolf it down, but some people will wolf it down. If that is the process, that is the person's process, that's a personal thing. That is good. It is no problem there. That does not create any problem. What in the end the biological clock does is essentially, in every single case, you get rid of a meal. And that is very, very important. We get rid of a meal. That's exactly what happened to me. And so I thought, maybe there's something wrong. But in every single person, that is exactly what happened. One meal too many. And then you could understand why this phase 1 can really make you lose weight. Just the phase 1. That's why I don't talk about exercise in phase 1. Huh? So it was a good crowd. It's gonna have many more people join. I truly appreciate everyone here. Some people I haven't seen in quite a while. It's just before Thanksgiving. It might be a little bit difficult, but who knows? I think there are some people who will take that as the actually the ultimate challenge. Figuring out the biological clock is not going to happen overnight. Huh? It's going to take some time. We're not going to put a time. Let's say, because this is the largest crowd I've had so far, it will take some time. I have a sense, but it will take some time. We'll gather back, and we'll see next week. I think I'm going to do this every Tuesday. It's going to be a standing thing. Put it in the calendar, because I think then we're going to learn also from each other. I don't think I have all the truth. Yes. I would like to think so. Don't we all think so? But I'm very happy. This is quite radical because it does not imply a program, a plan, or anything like that. And I believe that's the way to go in order to be sustainable. Okay. Enjoy the turkey, but not too much of it. It is fine. You know, there are Zen. A long time ago, I read about. I was reading a lot about Zen, and there was a title by The Mirror, I believe. The title of the book is. And this American joins a Zen temple in Japan, and he happens to show up. The next day was the holiday where they eat as much as they can, because for the rest of the year they're not gonna eat much. Gonna eat basically pickled radishes. And he thought, boy, I really picked the best place in the world, but that is not the way it was going to be. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next Tuesday at the same time, 2 o'clock New York City time, Standard Eastern time, on Facebook. I was very happy. A lot of people showed up. Very happy. The live worked, and enjoy. Thank you so much. Feel free to send questions as we go. Bye-bye.